Yeah, okay. We were talking about
Famous one?
Famous Seven. I mean, Famous Five and Secret Seven. Same. I share the same opinion as Ashwin. Secret Seven all along, all the way.
Famous five.
Yeah, Secret Seven was the shiz, man. Like
Yeah.
they had
I mean,
this whole club
forgot
with
the
like a
name.
Okay.
vast.
Okay. Yeah, Nini. I think Secret Seven is the
How
one with Joe,
awesome
right?
was that?
Joe, right? Like, there's a girl who is a
I
boy.
don't
Wait,
remember the names, but I remember
George?
being
George
very
was
George,
in
George,
famous.
George, George.
happy to read all of them.
Famous five.
That is Famous Five. Okay. I remember this character. She used to go into a fit of coughs, I mean sneezes, like because
Uh-huh.
randomly, and that used to get them caught into like they used to go and sneak around things, and then she used to get caught. They used to get caught because she used to sneak. So that was the plot point. That was a recurring thing. Yeah, I remember that. Goosebumps.
No,
No.
Ah,
not a
okay.
horror person. I think I've read one where you get
It,
to choose your own ending, like the
the
whole
pages.
Bandersnatch thing that they
Yeah,
did. Yeah,
yeah,
jump to
Okay.
page this, jump to page that.
yeah.
I don't remember the
That
mystery,
was
but
nice.
I liked that aspect of it.
I think I lost the mystery while searching for the pages.
I have not
Maybe
read
that
that.
happened.
I don't think I've read that.
Oh, have you read Cirque du Freak? Something. Those series.
No.
Uh, Shish. What have you read?
We are
We've not read
not
2,000
worthy
books. We've
of
not read
talking to
2,000
Nandana.
fucking books.
Okay.
Yeah, okay. So you guys have like okay in non-fiction, which is your favorite book? Like think a book that blew your mind.
Mm, very recently, actually, I read A Subtle Art of Not Giving a Fuck
Hmm.
That is
by,
very real. That book is very real.
yeah. And then the sequel to it came out called Everything is Fucked. And
Uh,
then I didn't like it as much, but it gave me like this whole new existential crisis that wasn't previously there.
no, no. In the subtle art of not giving a fuck, there is this particular phrase or passage or paragraph. Okay, where he says that if you really wanted something, you would have done it. You wouldn't be sitting here reading my book. You would have done it. That spoke so real to me. I was like, okay, I should know. I cannot physically read the book. Otherwise, I'll go into depression and die. So I didn't read the book. It's still there. It's there. I kept it there. There.
It's a good book. See, I'm the kind of person who shamelessly judges a book by its cover. Although, like the entire time people tell you not to,
Hmm.
there have been so many instances where I just bought a book because the cover page looked magnificent.
Okay.
So I was like, cool. Regardless of whether or not I read it, I want this on my cupboard.
Okay.
So I
I
bought a
do
book
that.
just for that, and then reading it was just like, I don't know, a side effect of that, I guess.
Like it is पढ़ा हुआ है उधर ले ही लेते हैं.
But that way
Actually
also,
read it.
I did come across a lot of good books,
Hmm.
but they weren't necessarily fiction. That's the only thing about my bibliography that I don't know differentiates me from you guys, I guess.
No, I started reading non-fiction like when I joined this company. Those like that time. Because then it was like, अरे fiction में क्या है type stuff. So yeah. Anyway, what's your favorite non-fiction book? Nandana?
I don't like non-fiction
Cool.
at all.
Okay. So I read this book. It's called 1965 Indo-Pak War. Okay. So I'm a huge army person and all these things. I love the defense forces. Absolutely love it. Okay. And when I read the book, I was so moved. I cannot explain it. I have never like again the whole namesake thing. This time I related to the book very hard, right? Because I know what it feels like when your father doesn't return home on a given time and there is something very critical happening, right? So you know there's trouble, there's problems, these kind of things. So like the book spoke to me so loudly, and there is this particular like I want to adapt. Like you can edit this out. I want to adapt it into a film. It is that good. So basically,
In the park war.
it's written by this author called Rachna Singh Bisht or something. And so this book is like there's this whole narrative to it. Like she wrote a book about Paramveer Chakra stories and all that. And the Ministry of Defense says that the 1965 war 50 years have gone by. This is the 50th year anniversary. We want a book commemorating it. So you need to write a book. So it's like, when is it? They say that within 6 months. So now she goes on this insane journey of going to different people's house, like old retired army officers, air force officers, talking to them, and so you see some very first-hand experiences. Like there's a story wherein a person comes from one post to the next so that he gets a map. An officer, he comes in a jeep, he gets the map. Just as he's leaving, a torpedo comes and he gets blasted off, right? And the person is explaining like how that whole thing happened and how he saw his whole body just explode in front of his eyes. So it's like
Damn.
some very surreal. Like another one was them trying to, like, small snippets, right? So she's trying to build the whole. She doesn't go political about the story at all. So there is no Tashkent Declaration. There is no conclusion to the war. It is just these stories that she's telling us, like very in a very surreal manner, right? So she talks about this one guy, one Jawan who goes looking for water. So he keeps running around, and first of all, it's a huge risk because everybody has given him their bottles and things. He goes there, finally he finds a well or pond or something, right? He goes inside and he pulls out, it's all blood. The whole pond is blood. But because they have no choice, because there is no water nearby, they fill the bottle. He goes back and he gives the bottle to the people, and they have to drink that bloody water, because there is no other choice. And there are people who are suffering from diarrhea and all these things. Like it is very real, very real. I was so moved by it, and I read it in a day, because again, it's a complete page turner, beautifully structured. I read her other books as well. The so-called well-researched work doesn't match up to this. So yeah. So any other Sapiens? You guys read Sapiens?
Nope,
I
not yet.
started it in your, due to your recommendation, and it is nice. I have a prejudice against non-fiction, but Sapiens was nice.
Sapiens is
So
nice.
far.
I think if you guys are going
So
down
far.
the lane of non-fiction, you should probably check out this author called Malcolm Gladwell.
Okay.
I think his books are the most that I've read, like from a singular author.
Okay.
So he somehow blends statistics, like statistical evidence, and tries to drive home a point about how things are the way they are because
Okay.
it is statistically like that.
Okay.
Like specifically, I guess his most famous work is Outliers. How people are the people who make like really proactive decisions are because statistically they are like that, and then how outliers are born and why they exist. All of that is spoken about in that book.
Okay. Like how an outer box thinking works.
Yes. And there are several other books also, but I guess Outliers is the first book you should check out.
Sure, yeah. Oh, you guys read Tintin? Asterix, Tintin?
Yeah. Asterix,
Yes.
Tintin, everything. Yeah.
Tintin, I have.
Tintin I used
Asterix,
to-
not so much.
Asterix me
See,
too.
that is how my numbers became 2000. It was individual Tintin books.
Please, okay. Tintin and all. No. Don't justify. Don't justify. You're a nerd. Okay? We all know you're a nerd. Okay. Fine. It is fine. It's an achievement, Baba. You have made some use out of your childhood.
It is small books.
Fine, fair. Okay, no issue.
Okay, fine.
Yeah. You don't have to justify. It's fine. 2000 books is a great achievement. Hopefully, you will find somebody who has read as much as you have. Okay.
Please, I don't know.
Nope, not possible. Sorry. 404.
Okay. Okay, right. I forgot one very important book. Alchemist. How many of you read Alchemist?
I hate it. I hate The Alchemist.
Oh, I like the part where they say the whole universe will come together, but the book was.
I had to read that entire book only to realize that guy was standing right under the treasure the entire time.
that
Like he
really
came
bad,
back
okay.
all the way. Like what?
That was really bad.
Are you
The
kidding?
book
No.
shouldn't.
I like that. I like that. I like
I read
No.
it when I was young, so I had no takeaways, absolutely no takeaways from that book. And I somehow never wanted to revisit also.
No, there is like the whole
I did not
universe.
find it transformative. I did not find inspiration in it. I just liked the part where they talked about
Omen.
universe coming together.
Like I like the omens aspect of it. Like no matter what, the omens will always be there. The signs will always be there. That aspect of it, I think I like.
Sydney Sheldon.
Sydney Sheldon, I've read like 2-3 books.
Sydney Sheldon is a light reading. It's like you're on a train and it's like a 10-hour journey, so you read Sydney Sheldon. That, yeah.
I thought Sydney Sheldon was a woman because most of the
Right?
books had a
Right?
female protagonist.
Correct. Did you
Yeah,
know
and I
that?
Wait,
thought
Sydney Sheldon isn't a woman?
No, it's
he's
a
a guy.
guy. He's a
He's
guy,
a
bro.
guy.
Yeah.
I thought it was the other way around.
No.
I thought people thought he was a guy, but then she was a woman.
No, he's a guy.
Damn, son.
No.
Okay, then he's written a few very good female characters,
Yeah.
which I
Isn't
guess
there?
is really hard to do.
Couple of very.
There was some book about the Iron Butterfly, but I forgot the name of the book.
They have a very vague name like memory, like midnight of this midnight something. Something like that. Like my dad used to like back in the day. It was there were no flights and blah blah blah. So they used to go in trains for like tours and trips and all that. Right. So whenever he went for that, he would take a Sydney Sheldon book and he would bring it back home because it was a train reading, and I would read through it like ooh. Yeah. So
I
that
liked it. I mean, it had mystery. It had.
it was very light. It's like
Most of the
Pulp
books.
Fiction of sorts,
Yeah,
like a more
it
refined
was. It
version of
was.
Pulp.
It was. Yeah, exactly.
Yeah, it was
It
like
was
there's no major
entertainment.
takeaway or anything. It's just
Exactly.
yeah, the 300 pages, 240 pages of musty. Right? Yeah.
Similarly, I
Uh,
used to think that Carolyn Keene was one person. It's not.
who is Carolyn?
Never heard
Nancy
of.
Drew author.
Oh,
Then
It's
she
not one
wasn't?
person.
Hardy,
It's a. Yeah, even Hardy Birthday.
Hardy was there with
Franklin
Franklin
W.
something. Huh?
Dixon.
Uh,
That's not one guy. That's a pen name for a group of authors or something like that.
Nice.
It's not one guy.
okay,
And
even
it's not
Ian
one
Fleming is not.
woman.
Ian Fleming is a pen name now, like the Bond series, James Bond.
Yeah, he died, right?
Yeah, but I think it's become a pen series now. They're continuing the series with his name,
Oh.
something like that. Wait,
But he died.
let me check if that is correct. Like
Okay,
yeah,
I'm
on
not
that
sure.
note,
Okay, I'm
there's
not
one
sure.
more. There's one more series that I don't know if you've read. There's a famous David Fincher film also on that. It's called
Zodiac.
Dragon Tattoo. No, the girl with the dragon tattoo.
Oh yeah,
Dragon
Stieg Larsson. Stieg
Steve
Larsson.
Larson, yes, he was. Like,
Yes.
no, there is this ultimate mystic attached to somebody who dies while he's writing a book, right? So it's like Steve Larson died
And
after like the girl who kicked the hornet's nest or something like that.
yeah,
He's dead?
He's dead. You
yeah,
don't.
he died.
He died.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Okay.
He wrote 3 books. He was a magazine editor. You know, Blomqvist. He's a magazine editor in a Swedish this thing. He also got caught in a scandal. All these things have happened to him, but not in like the exaggerated investigative style that it happens in the book. But then they're still continuing the series. Like it's on the 5th or 6th book now. But I've only read the first 3. Yeah. For me, the first book, like not the 12th leave, but 10th standard leave, I read the first book, and I remember about.
I think we can move on to the books that we read over the weekend.
Yeah, okay, sure.
There was a challenge, remember?
Yes, there was a challenge. We've come to the challenge.
I actually don't know which books Ashwin read.
Yeah. Ashwin, why don't you
Yeah,
start?
you start, I'll keep it for the end.
Oh, okay. It's because we only
Because
have few
I read
books.
4, no.
Oh,
Yeah, I
we
read
only have
4.
few,
I have a very comprehensive thing to like talk about.
Okay.
Also, I'm very sleepy.
First, sorry. Not a good thing to say. Not a good thing to say. Okay. So the first book that I read was this book, right? Because I felt like it was
I
just read The Ministry of Utmost Happiness by Miss Roy.
Arundhati Roy.
Yeah.
Okay.
So usually when you read a book, you have the satisfaction that you have read a book, This didn't give me that. It had a lot of interesting things in it, but it just felt like it felt like trance. You know what I'm trying to say? It felt like so many things just compressed into this one book, which is like 400 pages. So it took me that much time to read the book as well, because you had to read everything so carefully, otherwise you lose context. A lot of very political book. Okay, she's like, if God of Small Things was all social, this is her most political book ever. She just goes full out. Again, when I started off, I told Nandana also, I'm not a huge fan of the political opinion, so maybe that's why it didn't click for me. And she's extremely negative towards the army, so I didn't like it that much because of that. She's extremely negative. Like, there is no, like, according to her, there is no redeeming quality for our Indian army ever. Like, they're the worst. They're the villains of the.
In the sense that she is pro peace and anti war, or like just
No,
shitting on the Indian army in general.
just not in general. She's talking like the premise of the story starts off with it being about a transgender in Delhi, and then it progresses into the Anna Hazare protest, and then the small, like, the perspectives were insane, right? So like the whole huge Anna Hazare movement is happening, and I relate to it because I was there in Delhi at that time. So the Anna Hazare movement is happening, and the same spot in Jantar Mantar itself, there are other protests that are going on, but nobody's giving a shit about it, right? So she's explaining like, okay, Bhopal gas tragedy people have also come here, this people have also come here, that people have also come here, and then she takes you to Kashmir from there, and then, like I was telling you, there is the IB officer who has his Indian patriotic Indian viewpoint. There is the terrorist who is who with whom we are supposed to sympathize with, and then there is this outsider who has no relation with, who has no context to this world. She comes into the world and then she starts sympathizing. Hence, you try to, hence trying, like, instead of urging us to sympathize with her of sorts. If you're getting it. So she does that, and the story meanders, like, it's like Dan Brown, right? So she starts talking. She starts talking. It's about, like, they're sitting in a room and somebody's about to come. Something is about to happen. You know that, right? But then suddenly she'll start talking about mutton and food and kebab, and then she'll talk about a dog, and then she'll talk about sex, and then she'll talk about cigarette. It'll just go like that. So yeah, but it had a very good quality to it. Like I said, like when she's talking about tea, I could taste the tea in my mouth. So she was very good at that, but she was not good at conveying a story with that. I don't know. She just stretched it to 400. Something that could have been kept to 200 was stretched to 400 is what I said. That is book number one. Book number two is The Edge of Darkness. An Era of Darkness. This is by Mr.
Terror.
It's completely roasting the British Empire for 270 odd pages. Just roast, dude. It was like tack, tack, tack. He's just completely destroying them. Like, no arguments that you've heard in our own history textbooks, right? Like, there are points where we justify the British, like, okay, the British were happy, they were nice. They helped us with railways and all that. They gave us education. They gave us cricket. So we do all these things. So we're like, okay. And then we blame ourselves. Like, we were not a country only. They came and made us a country and all. ठीक है तो Tarun is like, fuck all that shit. ऐसा कुछ नहीं है. We would have become a country without them also. These fuckers have fucked us all over, and they've done all things. And then, it's brilliant. He actually refers, like, when he presents an argument, he doesn't just present it like some piece of information. He sort of presents with you and with an argument. Like, for example, the railways are not the railways one. Railways one, he didn't say much. The argument about, say, for example, India becoming one country, right? So how do you? He started presenting an argument, but it was not just a blank argument. It was not a statement or he's not saying this is the fact. He's saying that this is the perspective that this person had from this book at that time, and this is the perspective. So he's giving you references as well. He's giving you quotes. He's giving you what this person thought. He's giving you statistics. So it was quite comprehensive. It was like, if I could take this book to any debate competition, and I know that this guy is a grand debater. Like, he knows how to, like, completely destroy his opponents with argument. Yeah, it's just like him showing off his qualities, like, so whatever, it's aspirating Prague of diaspora. universe. These were the two books that I read. I was about to read The Subtle Art of Not Giving a Fuck for the sake of reading a third book. But now I can't. It's too late for that. Yeah. What about you, Nandana? What have you read?
Okay, my first pick was The Stepford Wives.
Okay.
And that was by Ira Levin.
Okay.
It was satire, basically. You know the term Stepford wife, right?
No. Like Handmaid's Tale type? Mistress.
No, she is the no. Stepford wife is the opposite. She is the ideal wife every guy wants. She has perfect hair. She has that hourglass figure, and then she's a domestic goddess. I mean, she only cares about what she doesn't have any. I don't know, hopes or dreams of her own. Everything hers is whatever he wants.
Okay.
Her life is his. I mean, she's the ideal wife, Stepford wife.
Okay. Okay.
So the term came from this book. It was a satire, basically. This was written in the time of the feminist movement, 1970s or something,
Okay.
America, and all the women started coming out. They were like, "No, we have dreams of our own. We have passion of our own." The feminist movement was springing up, and this guy wrote this tale as a satire of a cautionary tale. It was basically like uh, there is this place called Stepford, and every family has this wife who is perfect, and she's a domestic goddess, and she has a perfect figure and perfect hair and everything. And this newcomer family who comes there, she tries to make friends with them, and all the women are too busy in their own domestic life. And then I mean, they don't have a career of their own or something, I think. Okay, and this new family comes in, and this lady is a photographer and all that, and she tries to befriend all those housewives, but then they're all housewives and they're too busy in their domestic life. And then the friends she does make end up going to a holiday and coming back as a Stepford wife. I mean, whatever individuality that they had, they would lose it and they'd come back as domestic. I don't know, the wife.
Okay.
And then she starts feeling that there is some conspiracy going on, and she tries to find out. And the book's ending is kind of nice. Okay, and she finds out something is wrong. I'm just leaving it up to you.
No endings.
What? Yeah, no endings. Okay, whatever. It's nice. It has been made into many movie adaptations. And the thing is that this guy wrote this as a cautionary tale. It's like women, if you become feminists like this, men will put you back into your place. I mean, like this, men will rise up. And then he meant it satirically, but men will rise up and put you back into your place. Something like that.
Okay, this sounds like Get Out to a great extent.
Yeah, exactly. I was going to say it sounds like Get Out.
Yeah. It is like that. It is very much like Get Out.
Okay.
Oh, Get Out is like the Stepford black guy.
Get Out, yeah, okay.
Okay, whatever.
Okay.
Okay, so the next book was entirely different. It was A Clockwork Orange.
Yeah.
Oh, you're reading that. Okay.
Yes.
Yeah.
I'm not sure if it's a screenplay or something, but it was by Anthony Burgess, and it seemed like a book. But the language is very different. He mixes Russian with
I think it's called Nasdaq or something.
Nasdaq or something. Not Nasdaq. Something. Nadsat.
Okay.
Something like that.
Something like that. Yeah.
It's almost at the end. And the third one selected was non-fiction. It was called What If.
Okay.
It is like the author would provide proper scientific answers to silly questions. Not silly questions. Okay, silly questions. Like, for example, the very first question they tackle is, what would happen if the earth suddenly stopped spinning? And then they give us that people would fly off and everything. They'd give proper scientific answers for that.
Fair. All right.
So that was fun. I haven't finished it. I just started it.
Okay, so that's What If. So that's book 3. What about 4? Book 4.
That's why I said it was overall maybe 2 books, but
Started 3 books there.
in act, yes, started 3 books.
Now your turn,
Yes,
Mr. 4 books. O skepticismo. I'm all skeptical about the book.
Yeah, I honestly didn't even want to do the challenge because I was going through the reader's equivalent of writer's block,
Okay.
reader's block, if you were to call it that.
Okay.
Because I think the beginning of the year I selected this really thick book, some 600, 700 pages long by Bill Bryson called The Brief History of Everything or something like that. I forgot what it was called.
Okay.
The Brief History of Nearly Everything.
Okay.
So I've only completed like 250 to 300 pages of that book, and I really wanted to finish it, but I wasn't able to for some reason. Like
Okay.
from the beginning of this year, I've been stuck with just that one book. Like
Oh,
I haven't been able to finish just even one.
okay.
So I was really skeptical about this whole thing. I didn't know I'll be able to finish 4 books, but conveniently, I chose books that I thought I could be able to finish. I would be able to finish, and I did. So,
Yeah.
jokes on you, I guess.
Yeah, it's on me. It's on Akash.
I also selected really small books. I didn't finish.
Okay, then I guess
See,
I'm just awesome
that's
that
how
way.
people are. They fail. Not like you. Oh, I'll fail when you do it. Okay. They're normal people, not supernatural people.
Yeah, so in my pursuit of selecting really small books, I ended up choosing 2 of Sudhamurthy's books. You know
Sudha,
Sudhamurthy, right?
yeah, I know.
Yeah.
Ah, grandmother
So
or something. English
not
Narayan Murthy's
grandmother.
wife.
She's yeah, even more
No,
more so. She is the chairperson of the Infosys Foundation, which is like the Indian version of the Melinda Gates Foundation, I guess.
Yeah, correct.
Yeah. So she is like the Melinda Gates of India, if you were to put it that way.
Okay.
So she's a basically a computer science graduate.
Mm,
She's every bit as smart as Narayana Murthy is, I guess.
mm.
But she also has the side to her where she's dabbled with a lot of fiction writing. And but the 2 books I read were non-fiction, like accounts of her past
Okay.
as a social worker or a philanthropist. So uh, I had two collections. One was Wise and Otherwise,
Okay.
and the other one was The Day I Stopped Drinking Milk.
I have that book at my house.
Yeah, and this titular I don't know whatever that particular chapter from the entire book was actually quite underwhelming. The story of how she actually stopped drinking milk was underwhelming, but everything else was, yeah, actually very good, because reading it was a breeze. Like I started um, at 10 a.m. on Friday while I was working, and then um, like I read it in bits and parts, and then I could like finish it really fast, because they were all like small chapters and surprisingly huge font size. So I could read fast, I guess. Then this shit happened. It's called The Leader Who Had No Title by Robin Sharma. Okay, so I was actually looking forward to this book, okay, because I had read another one of his books called Who Will Cry When You Die.
Okay.
So
ah,
I really liked it because Robin Sharma actually has like a lot of
Insights.
stuff to tell you. Yeah, insights, and they're actually very pretty good. And the thing about Who Will Cry When You Die was it was just plain insights put on paper, and you just had to read it. But the thing about this
Mm,
is he had that, but
mm.
he chose to say it differently. He chose to put it into a fictional story,
Okay.
and that's when you start realizing this guy has got a lot of shortcomings when it comes to
Good.
uh, I don't know, structuring a story. Because what happens is the main guy goes to like 4 different leadership mentors, and
Okay.
then it's just dialogue after dialogue after dialogue about what leadership is, how it can be incorporated in your life, and acronyms, what each of the acronyms are, and like it is fuck all. Okay, like I stopped reading this book some 3 times, and then I went back to the third book and I finished it, and I came back, and then I'm like, fuck this, I cannot continue. But then somehow I had to finish. But yeah, if he didn't take the, I mean, if he didn't go in the path of the fictional account that he did, I guess if he just put out facts plainly, I guess it would have been a much better book.
Okay.
Nonetheless, I must say I didn't enjoy it thoroughly. And then the fourth book I had on the list was Tribe by Seth Godin, which again was another book on leadership. But having sat through this, I was like, nah, I can't do this. So I I went and read The Fault in Our Stars, which is a book that I have put away for the longest time possible. But I needed some form of guilty pleasure, so I started reading this in the afternoon at like 2 and finished it at like 9:30. So this
Damn.
is good. This is good. Yeah, it was a good book. I've read Paper Towns.
Yeah.
I like John Green's writing, so like the whole humane aspect of surviving cancer and what it's like, and unlike the whole the cliche way of putting it, like where everything's a sob story and all that, this didn't really
But it does
go
become a
towards that.
soft story at the end of it.
Yeah, a lot of people cried, I guess, but I saw his death coming from like a mile away.
Yeah,
I also knew
that's true.
that he would die, I guess, because this book came out like ages ago.
Yeah. The movie
It
came out
was
on
in my, yeah, but it did create like a lot of buzz. So
yeah.
I've not seen the movie either, so I thought I'll give it a shot. Like one fiction book and then three other non-fiction was a
So
good ratio, I guess.
what is your takeaway from this entire challenge? This entire thing that we did?
Mm,
That he's a fraud.
no, not really.
Yeah.
That can't be it.
You start like
I
my takeaway is I have been able to now I have realized that okay, I can actually sit and read. Right? I just need the motivation to do it. So now I had this was the motivation. So every time I woke up, I was like, oh, okay, that book, which took me back to my old days when like there was the Harry Potter book that I had to finish because I wanted to finish it, not because of the challenge or something, but just because I want to finish a Harry Potter book. So I would read it in a bus, I would read it in a car, I would read it in the bathroom, I would read it while I'm at the kitchen, I'm about to eat. Because I was obsessed with the process of reading, which I have given up. So I have sort of gone back to that. I hope to finish. I'm saying this out loud. I may fail terribly, and I'm not a very principled and disciplined. I'm not a very disciplined person, not principled, disciplined person. But I will try and finish one book a week this year. I'll try it.
well, that's a good thing, bro.
Yeah. What about you? What's your takeaway?
I think for me it's more minuscule. I'm trying to like read at least 10 or 15 pages a day and then see where that goes.
Okay.
That's something I started doing halfway through last year also.
Okay.
So in the process, I was able to finish a lot. Like I uh, I read a lot of Murakami last year,
Ooh.
so I intend on doing that this year as well.
Fine, fair.
I'm surprised we didn't talk about Murakami also, but that is probably for another podcast, I guess. I think we can have one that is specifically dedicated to him.
Yeah. We'll do a marathon.
Yeah.
Now, your turn, Nandana. Nandana, your
My
turn.
takeaway was sad.
Always, as always. As always.
It was sad.
What is it? Just
No,
the
like
word sad.
you see the contrast. I used to sit and read like 10 books in 2 weeks, and now I couldn't even finish 4. So it was sad. I realized I might be suffering from ADHD because I don't know what to do. The only thing I do is scroll Instagram. I don't even have the patience to sit through a
But you,
Netflix series.
Hmm, hmm, hmm.
And I didn't have much work except for some going through code and all that. But I should have used books as an escape at that time, but I didn't.
Okay.
Mostly because my phone was tethered to the system,
Hmm.
so I couldn't pull it away and move away from the system and all that. So it was sad that I couldn't finish at least the tiny books that I've selected. I had set the bar low. I couldn't even cross that.
No, but
So it was sad.
it's a starting platform. Don't you think you will continue to read? Aren't you curious?
Yeah, I don't know. I mean, if I I think it's like starting trouble.
I guess same. Yeah.
Reader's block.
Reader's block.
Yes.
First time on
Your
communication
reader's
breakdown. Years later, like centuries later, we will be writing about it.
reader's block.
The first time it was coined a podcast by this Ashwin Vinu.
Yeah,
Very
it's
inventive
probably
word also.
reader's block.
I guess the reader's version of a writer's block is what is.
Yeah, it was probably that. Besides, the other thing was our maid was not coming, so we had to clean the house. Oh my god, so much pigeon shit.
Go Corona, go Corona. Go Corona, go.
So much pigeon shit. So I guess pigeon shit blocked me from reading.
I think that is also a good conclusion to our podcast.
Oh.
Pigeon shit.
Pigeon shit.
I am very certain that was the insult. That was a good insult. But I am very certain that nobody's ever going to say that insult. I'll stop the recording. Things should not be. How do you?
So that's it, folks.
That's it.
Like, share, and subscribe.
Yeah.
No.